Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Tunnel Vision. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, joined live alongside Shotgun Spratling, way back on the East Coast, and then right over there, Chris Trevino. You can follow him on Twitter, Shotgun SPR, or Chris N. Trevino. You can follow me at Inside Troy. And this is our Tunnel Vision show, our live show. We haven't done one for a while. We recapped spring football, but it's been such a huge weekend for USC athletics. We got a little text thread going. Shotgun's like, we should probably do a show. Like, probably should do a show. Chris is like, hey, doesn't really like doing shows, but he came into the studio to do the show because we got to talk about all this fun stuff. If you're watching us, we are live on Facebook, which is cool. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter on our at USC football handles. If you want to watch on any of those platforms, and the replays will be up there as well. If your comments are coming up on YouTube or Facebook, I got them in front of me, so I'll be able to put them up on the screen and put them up there. Like we have little Mark. Mark is in the chat for our YouTube. He says, hello, Ryan, Chris, and Shotgun. So I'll be able to do stuff like that, put them up on the screen. We're also going to take some live calls today. So you can call us 512-4-TUNNEL. No call screen or anything today, so I'll just pull up. If you call in, I will try to bump you up there and put you up on the screen. But yeah, I just want to welcome in the guys. We haven't done one of these shows for a little while. Shotgun, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. It's been an interesting weekend for USC. I'm calling it a championship/commit weekend. A lot of big things going on around campus. I've been all over the place. I was in Lehigh when I got the LeBron James news. I was out at Delaware today. So I've been in 3 or 4 different states this weekend. So bouncing all over the place. And catching as much USC action as well on my phone as I'm driving and all that. So it's been a fun weekend for sure.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Chris? What are you doing? We pulled you out of your slumber.
Yeah, I was kind of shifting down because I'm going back home to Maryland for a wedding this week. So, I'm just kind of shifting down a little bit. But I had to come in, a lot of things happening. It's my fault because I'm going on vacation. Decided to just, spiral into a bunch of commitments and news for this weekend. So it was only a matter of time for something like that to happen. And, yeah, I'm doing it for the fans who want to hear us talk about all these great things that have happened this weekend.
There've been a lot, and I'm putting some of the comments and stuff up on the screen. But yeah, we appreciate you wherever you're watching. So thank you very much. If you're on our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe it there. You can also like us over on the Facebook page and follow us any of our Twitter accounts, any way you can interact with us. And of course, the mothership is uscfootball.com. That's where all the content that we put up there. And there's been a ton of content this week. I watched the women's beach volleyball team win their third straight, their three-peat national championship this morning. Last year, I had Dane Blanton on, the head coach, on Tunnel Vision, so I'll probably have to get him on again. The women's lacrosse team won the Pac-12 championship. You got Bronny James, LeBron James' son, commits to USC. A couple big commitments. One of them a transfer from Alabama, 2 brothers, and the number 1 safety in the country for the class of 2025. We got to get into all of that. USC baseball was doing well. They had a little slide, and then they bounced back with a win over a ranked team in Oregon this weekend. So we got to get to all that fun stuff. But Shotgun's lighting up. I'm going to talk about baseball and
basketball.
I get to watch the volleyball this morning and stuff too. Where do you guys think we should start? You want to go like LeBron? You want to go Bronny James
LeBron
first?
James.
Can we start? Do we ever start with basketball?
Ryan, I don't know if you know this. No one was supposed to tell you, but we did an emergency podcast about basketball last night.
I saw that. I tried to delete it. It didn't work. No, I'm just kidding.
Big ups to Adam, our intern that helped us out during the basketball season, for jumping on, in the midst of all the finals and stuff that are going on for USC students. And on a Saturday night, decided to take a little time out. But Yeah,
He
big
did it.
news for
That's great.
USC.
So make sure you go check that out because this show we simulcast or whatever. This is a live video show, but we put it on our Peristyle podcast podcast channel. Tons of content going up there. Chris does his 2-star, composite recruits podcast. I'll call it something different every time. We put shows with Harvey Hyde, me and Chris. Composite 2-star recruits.
It's an unserious show, so it doesn't matter what it could call.
Yeah, and then Shotty's been doing baseball podcasts, which have been great, and then this is an emergency basketball podcast. So if you want to talk about, oh, by the way, shout out to George who just came in from South Africa and is watching this. So thanks, George. But yeah, Shotty, the floor is yours if you want to talk a little Bronny.
I mean, it's huge news, and just because of the impact it's going to have around the program. Now, as far as a player, he will have an impact on the team as well. And I think he fits in really well, and you can listen to us get really in depth on how he fits in and where he fits in. Is he a one-and-done talent? All those things if you listen to the Emergency Podcast. But just in general, I think the biggest thing is it's going to impact the program. This has been a program that's been winning 20 games consistently under Andy Enfield the last 4 or 5 years, been going to the NCAA tournament pretty consistently, been getting some big-name recruits. But the biggest recruit coming in prior to this year, Evan Mobley, no one got to watch in the arena. And now USC is going to have the number 1 player in the country, number 2 in our final rankings. I'm still calling him number 1. He's the composite number 1, Isaiah Collier, the point guard. Is probably going to be a one-and-done talent. And then now you have Bronny, so everyone's going to be interested in seeing how this team kind of plays out, how it works, and they bring back Boogie Ellis. So that's going to be a dynamic backcourt. You've got Kobe Johnson. It's going to be a lockdown defender. You got Josh Morgan and Vince Iwuchukwu down low. Potential, twin towers that can block shots. So you can do some different things with the lineups as well. And I think Vince is going to take a big step forward. But everyone's going to want to know about Bronny James. So it's just going to bring all that extra attention around this team. So, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, all right, is it going to be a packed Galen Center? How much interest is there going to be in this basketball program that should have had, more fan support in the last few years just because of what they've done on the court? Now you've got an extra reason to go support them. So it's really fun for me, knowing that coaching staff and how much, effort they put in and some of the recruits they brought in and, still not being able to get that traction of the fan support and, packing Galen Center because it's such a great venue when that place is packed. When you see the UCLA games and, the Arizona games most of the time, when it's a packed house, it's so much fun. And I'm really looking forward to that next year. I've already got my schedule lined up for football. Now I'm starting to line up some of the basketball games. I don't know if Ryan knows about this or not, about, making some trips out to see, see the basketball team. Yeah, well, it's going to happen, Ryan. Just get ready for that bill. Just letting you know.
Yeah, it's great, obviously, to get a guy like that, big name, 5-star recruit, and obviously just some of that celebrity cachet. USC being in Los Angeles, there's something that comes with that. And if you want to get an advantage on other schools, it's different being a college town versus being in a professional town. And then you add the celebrity aspect to it. Just having, there's Kobe Bryant's daughter goes to USC. Like all these people, the actors and all that stuff. But having like a sports, the all-time leading scorer in the NBA, his kid is going to your school. We'll see how good of a player he is. I don't know. I haven't watched too much tape or anything of him, but that can't do anything but help, obviously.
Yeah, and I think that celebrity, and there's been times when you've seen, Nick Young comes around, he's dating Iggy Azalea, and they're on the sideline. You have basketball players that show up, NBA players and stuff like that. You have Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson, stops by for games and stuff. So there's been that celebrity occasionally. But, you see the Lakers, when they're going, all the celebs that come out. And I feel like this, I think basketball in L.A. just has a bigger following than necessarily we've seen at USC. So I think that there will be celebrities that want to come out and just have that, that interaction with USC, which is only going to help. Ryan, we're talking about, Kobe's daughter is going to be at USC. You got LeBron's son at USC. Ryan, I don't know if you remember the show Weird Science that was on USA, not the movie, but the TV show.
I didn't see it.
The blonde that was the main character in it, her daughter's on the women's basketball team. She doesn't play much, but just another famous. There's always famous children or children of famous people. Dating. You can go back to the Full House mom. Go there.
Yeah.
Aunt Becky's daughter. But so there's all kinds of famous people. But now when LeBron walks in the Galen Center, it's a little bit different. It's not like, oh, it's just somebody's kids here. And everybody wants to see LeBron. Everybody flocks to LeBron. Just, look when he went to the Drew League, when he went to play in that, just the line around the building because
crazy,
people heard a couple hours before that LeBron may play in it. I think you're going to get some of that for USC, and I think that's awesome for this program that really deserves that kind of attention with the consistency they've had recently. And now there's also pressure. There's pressure that comes with having Isaiah Collier, the top player in the country. There's pressure with having Bronny. Okay, what can he do? Does he fit in? There's going to be a lot of haters. They're going to say, he's not very good or whatever. I think he fits in really well for this program. And can give them what they've been missing, which is some shooting. He's been shown that he can be a knockdown shooter. He did that in the McDonald's All-American game. And he is a guy that plays on both ends. He plays defense. And when you have guys that are willing to play defense, you're going to be in every single game. So I think it's a really good fit for the team, as well as the impact it's going to have around the aura of the team, and just adding another celebrity on campus. I mean, you're going to have – I asked Adam about this, and you guys got to check out his answer to this. But I said, hey, you could be in class with maybe the Heisman Trophy winner, maybe the number one player in the boys basketball in the country for coming out of the high school ranks, maybe the number one girls basketball player in the country coming out of the high school ranks, or maybe LeBron James' son, or maybe Kobe Bryant's daughter. Like, there's just all these – it's a good time to be a student at USC, and making friends with, people around you. And that's, we always talk about the USC degree and when in recruiting and stuff. And, it's about the connections you can make. It's not just about, hey, that CEO that you can make. Well, it's about this famous celebrity and, you're getting to hang out with them and that type of thing. And, who you can become friends with and all those type of things. USC is just, it's very unique in that regard. And this just takes it to another level, I think. He's the most notable, most public high school athlete in the nation. And even though he's super secretive and the family keeps him kind of off guard. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it kind of all plays out and develop. I'm excited about the opportunity to cover it. And, you get a chance to be around the atmosphere, because this program has deserved that and it hasn't had it. It feels similar to when Lincoln Riley got hired. I was excited because, hey, people are going to read our stuff now.
Yeah. No,
I'm selfish. I want people to read my stuff. And, if I spend time working on something, and now, people that are going to get a chance to with basketball stuff as well.
Yeah. We had a question from Blackie Chan. Do you think Bronny and LeBron will have any effect on the USC football team in any way?
Chris, I think you could answer this one probably a little bit better, but I think you're seeing that Caleb has an impact on everything else around campus. So I don't see why you wouldn't think that Bronny would have a similar impact, just as far as that celebrity status, people paying attention to USC that much more.
And the other equation of that is NIL money. Obviously, when you have more attention and a high status celebrity like Bronny James will be, and it obviously has that athletic component to it as well, you can only imagine that it will bring up the NIL stuff with the basketball team and possibly other programs, as well as, Caleb like to dish out the NIL love to other teams across campus. So yeah, I think absolutely it will have some impact with other teams. Maybe not the football team, just because Caleb is already there and seems to be doing a good job handling all that, but just impacting his own team, USC basketball, men's basketball with NIL stuff. Yeah, I could absolutely see that happening.
Yeah. Danny points out Andre Agassi and Steffi Graf's son pitches on the USC baseball team. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Even it's just been a thing. And when I was in school, I think the show was Growing Pains, and the younger son was there. You'd see him at the football game. You're like, oh, I see that dude on TV. That's just been something that's just a USC thing. And when you're talking about the Varsity Blues scandal, yeah, that's it's terrible. But in the end of the day, you look at it, it's well, people weren't what the joke was or whatever. People aren't paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to get their kid into Arizona State. They were doing that to USC, and the fact that USC was there with Stanford and UCLA and Georgetown, all those schools, these are the schools people are paying money to get into. USC sort of in that category. It's just there's a cool factor or whatever. And when Alabama's go on these crazy runs and wins tons of football games, it helps admissions. When you get a whole bunch of celebrities and social media people that are just was it Katie Austin or whatever? Or whatever. One of the fitness gurus, her daughter was
Denise Austin's daughter, Katie.
Yeah, Denise Austin. they have millions of Instagram followers. Like all that stuff helps because you see there's all this attention on your student. Like, oh, I want to go to school. Like what Shotgun said, I want to go to school with those people. So I think it could Blackie Chan not just help the football team, but the whole university.
Yeah, and Ryan, I think that's a great point because you talk about the increase in admissions. You see every time that a team, you're going to see it at San Diego State, you're going to see it, and maybe even with Miami. Like when you go on a Final Four run, and it's your first time, you're not a blue blood. Like that ends up pushing admissions higher because Florida Atlantic is going to get this because people are going to, and I've already heard this from some people in Florida, be like, wait, why did I go to this other school when Florida Atlantic was right down the street? Why didn't I pay more attention to them coming out? So now you're going to see, those high school students that may have overlooked, oh, that's the local school. I don't want to go local where, I'm going to see people I know, but like, oh, look what they could do. I want to be, looks fun. I'm going to stay home. And then other people that are from outside the area, they look at San Diego State and go, oh, it's in San Diego? I got to start checking this out a little bit more. Look, they got great athletics. Like they see the fans traveling really well. They're having a great time. And more people start paying attention to that. So I think you'll see similar with that in that regard where admissions, you get more applications just because it's going to be in the news more. It's going to be, what happened when he announced his commitment yesterday. It was on every ESPN show. It was on their NBA pregame show, I think. He got a shout out in the middle of the game, from Mark Jackson.
LeBron talked about it himself in the press conference afterwards and gave a lot, that was really cool.
Yeah, and when LeBron is tweeting or posting Instagram, fight on, I think that's really cool too. And it honestly, watching that interview, I didn't see that until after we recorded the emergency podcast, but that was so cool to see, how much love he has for his son and how excited he was for the first person in his family to go to college. Like you just see that LeBron. And I have even more respect for LeBron after that, just because he just does everything right. He's never been in some scandal throughout his entirety. He's in the public. He's the most public figure in the world, basically. And he just continues to do great things, whether it be all the kids that he's sending to school and stuff, the schools that he started back in his hometown of Akron, all those type of things. It just makes you respect him a little bit more, whether you're a LeBron fan or not. I think he's been a great person, a great diplomat for both the NBA and just the United States and sports in the United States.
What did you have, Chris?
I just had a couple of quick take it or leave it's for Shotgun if he wants to play a little impromptu, take it or leave it. Two of them are very unserious. One is an actual serious question. But first one, Shotgun, take it or leave it. We get a Drake game. Drake, the rapper, that is, not Drake London, appearance in the Galen Center this next season.
I'm going to go for a take it. And I think that maybe you'll get a double Drake. Maybe Drake London will stop by, the former USC basketball player too.
Yeah.
Next
one, Shotgun, take it or leave it. Are we being unfair to LeBron's first son that is actually at USC, Sierra Wright? That's a great point. Are we overlooking Sierra Wright and being unfair to him?
We do have now two of LeBron James' sons at USC. With Sierra Wright having played basically Bronny in Space Jam 2. So that's kind of interesting dynamic there. And I'm sure Sierra Wright has met Bronny and whatnot. So maybe he's already got a friend at USC there. Obviously, you got Juju Watkins, the number one female player in the country, going to USC from Sierra Canyon. So there's going to be some connections already there as well. Isaiah Collier, I've been told that Isaiah Collier, for whatever reason, and the right word wasn't really out there, but he has been really excited about the potential of playing with Bronny. Now, someone used the word kind of infatuation. They're like, that's way too high, but like, it's come up more than once in conversations that he's excited to play with Bronny. So, and maybe that's just because he knows if Bronny's there, then more people are going to show up to watch him. I don't know. But, if your number one player, the top player in the country, is super excited about playing with someone, I think that should tell you a little bit about, Bronny's capabilities and the fact that, they're already going to be meshing when he comes in. They played really well together in the McDonald's All-American game as well. Isaiah Collier's high school teammate from Wheeler High School in Georgia is coming as well, Arrington Page. That's the recruiting class right now. To answer a couple real quick questions, Sagar asks, is this why Trey White transferred even after a solid freshman year? I don't think so. I think Trey White is his own cat doing his own thing. Is, we talked a little bit about this on the podcast last night too, but I think this is going to be his 5th school in 5 years or 6th school in 6 years. He's committed to Louisville yesterday, so I don't think that was why. And then Socrates asked, was Silas Demery Jr., who was committed to USC, a 4-star commit, asked to leave because of Bronny? I thought he could have thrived even with Bronny. I would agree with that assessment, that I thought he could thrive even with Bronny. And I don't think he was asked to leave. That's not been the impression I've got. But I think maybe the Demery family started feeling like, all right, where are those minutes coming from if he comes in, when Silas was likely going to get a pretty good chunk of minutes as well. So, I think that just became a part of this thing, and not necessarily that anyone said, hey, if we get rid of Silas, then we can bring in Bronny type of thing. It's just he started seeing the writing on the wall and everyone talking about Bronny James potentially going to USC, and decided that he wanted to look somewhere else where he can get more playing time.
We also had a question from Touchdown SC. Is Bronny a walk-on? Like, people always want to do that. Just because your family has money doesn't mean players want to walk on. Like, there's privileges of being on scholarship. He's going to be on scholarship.
Yeah, and they do have a scholarship for him with Silas Demery Jr., leaving the class. Now, there were questions of, before Trey White went into the transfer portal and before Silas Demery is like, all right, are there going to be a scholarship? Is there not? How's that going to play out? So there will be a scholarship available. There have been some questions about Aaron Bradshaw as well. I know you guys probably don't know that name, but he's a 7-footer, top 5 player in the nation from Kentucky. I haven't heard anything specific on it. I haven't been able to. I know there's a lot of rumors floating around. I haven't been able to get into anything, and anyone really confirm that that's a potential. But even if that doesn't happen, the conversation is an interesting one, because the conversation is that, because Bronny is with Clutch Sports, they're going to want to put people around him type of thing. And it's not going to be a bad thing that you're going to have LeBron James, the companies he works for, potentially going to help out USC and Bronny. The Bronny's already got a couple of NIL deals himself, but, you're going to bring in some extra, potential NIL deals and things like that. And similar to what Chris said, with Caleb doing the same thing, those extra eyeballs are going to bring those in. Those relationships that are already there because of LeBron could bring extra things to USC, whether it be, a player leaving and his representation and that type of thing. I haven't got any confirmation, like I said, that Aaron Bradshaw is on the move, or that's a real possibility. I heard the rumor as well, but no one has really confirmed that.
Yeah. Did you have another take it or leave it, Chris?
I have one more take it or leave it, which was a real take it or leave it and not a silly one like the other two. Shotgun, given the Bronny James addition and, whatever may happen down the line, whether a transfer or Bradshaw or whatever, would you say, take it or leave it, that the minimum expectation for this team is Elite 8?
I'm going to leave that. And right now, the expectation I had we discussed this as well last night in the podcast, was Sweet 16. I think Sweet 16, if you don't get a Sweet 16, this is a disappointment for sure. Now, if they get Keishad Johnson from San Diego State, is another kid transfer that USC is in the mix for, then I think maybe you're starting to look at Elite 8 or bust type of thing, because I think he fits the same role that you had for Trey White and may do it a little bit better. He plays a little bit more defense, doesn't have quite the offensive potential, but Trey White hasn't necessarily reached that potential yet either. So they're very, very similar players. I mentioned that in the War Room a couple weeks back. But if they get him, I think he really fits what the roster needs right now as far as rebounding and defense more in the 4 spot for them. So that then I would possibly elevate to Elite 8. But right now, I think Sweet 16 is the kind of the cutoff where you expect them at least to get to Sweet 16.
All right, hold on. You know what that means?
Moneybags Manford?
Moneybags Manford put a little donation in the chat. Thanks for doing that. He says, I just want to say hi and fight on. Also, if possible, could I be introduced as Manford of the Manford Collective? Thank you, instead of Moneybags. You okay with that, Chris?
Manford of the Manford Collective. He can do whatever he wants with how deep his pockets run. He could buy this show and call it the Manford Tunnel Vision Show if he wanted to. Of course, we will refer to him as the Manford of the Manford Collective.
We have a phone call. I'm going to try to do this, jump in with this one. I think we have 2 in the queue, but let me pull this one up and we'll get into the next topic. Can you hear us? Please let us know where you're calling from and what your name is.
I can hear you, and I'm calling from Minnesota, and my name's Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
And this is not about the Bronny situation here. This is more about Anquan and Tre'Quon. Fegan's recruitment. So if that's okay, I can ask
Yeah,
that.
that's a perfect segue. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I was wondering, do you think this could be a snowball effect for USC recruiting in SEC country?
All right. Well, thanks for the call, Chris. We'll let you take that one. Do you want to start with?
Oh, I'm taking that one? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, just for a little bit of context, if you're not aware and you were, I don't know, sleeping all day, you didn't realize that USC football picked up 2 commitments from the brothers Fegans. Tre'Quon Fegan, the Alabama redshirt freshman transfer, cornerback, defensive back, he committed to USC earlier today. And then, I don't know, 30 minutes later, his youngest brother, a 5-star composite safety. He is rated as the #1 safety in the 24/7 Sports rankings for 2025. He went and committed to USC. That is Anquan Fegan. So USC with the Fagans double dip, got a commitment in the 2025 class, got some more defensive back depth for this upcoming season. So a really good 2-for-1 combo for Lincoln Riley and that staff. And as far as the question from Minnesota, I would say absolutely, because you have someone who is from the SEC country that can host them on the visit and be like, okay, this is what, how we can fit in with California. These are things I like about California, because, it's hard for those guys to leave home in the end. A lot of them, like to stay close to their families and whatnot. It seems like California kids have an easier time leaving home than, guys out of the SEC country in the South. So just having a little piece of home already in California with guys who are from the area, I think that does help. Obviously Bear Alexander, he's from the Texas area, played in Florida. Obviously it helps that you have a guy like Bookie who played at IMG, so he has some, ties to that area as well. I'm not sure if it would be a quote-unquote snowball effect, but I think it will help them pull a couple more guys out of there that they normally wouldn't. That just so you have, some proof of concept saying, hey, we as, Southern guys can come out here and thrive in California and, have everything that the West Coast has to offer for us.
Yeah, go ahead, Coach Shotgun.
I think that first he's got to get on the field and make an impact.
Uh-huh.
Then you can say that. Because I don't know if you remember this name, guys. Ishmael Shropshire was from Louisiana and had none of those impacts. And we thought maybe he would. Also an Alabama transfer. But because he never got on the field, was only here for a year, because he could never get on the field and could not stay healthy, he's not going to have that impact. So Fagans has got to get on the field and make it. And now with his brother coming in, you feel like he's going to be here longer. He's obviously got the eligibility and stuff. But if he doesn't get on the field and for whatever reason things don't go well for him, whatever, and he decides he wants to transfer again, whatever, and then you're not seeing the same thing. But we have seen it before. I mean, I think you can look at Caleb Williams and say, look at the impact he's had on DMV kids. To say, oh, okay, going over there. And even last year, I was at the Baltimore Under Armour camp, and I talked to a couple kids, and Caleb hadn't even played, hadn't done anything. But just the fact that he went to USC, being from the DMV, some of the kids were like, oh, yeah, I got to pay attention a little bit more, just because, I'm seeing, I'm going to watch Caleb and see how things go, because, he makes that move look possible. And now I can, he's someone that I can look to. So with him having success, that makes it a lot easier too.
Yeah. What a great call. That was like perfect segue. It was great. So thanks for that. We appreciate the phone call. So it's kind of on the football news sort of broke, like Chris said today, one after the other earlier today. So that was pretty cool. Some good news. And soon after that, they got some good news on the volleyball court. But I want to go into last week, I went to the Pacific Club in Newport Beach for a luncheon for the Lot Trophy. They were announcing their top 42, their watch list. So the 42 players you should watch for the Lot Impact Trophy. It's a major award where the best defensive player in the country, but also takes into account character of the player. And Tuli Tuipulotu was a finalist last year. Will Anderson Jr. Ended up winning it from Alabama. But USC had 2 players on the watch list. They had Kalen Bullock, the safety, and then incoming the transfer from Oklahoma State, Mason Cobb, the linebacker. So that was kind of cool. But Lincoln Riley was the featured speaker. And it was funny, Mark Sanchez was supposed to MC the event, and he apparently got ill. But we did hear a lot from Lincoln Riley. I put some notes in the war room on Friday for anyone that's a subscriber over at uscfootball.com. If you're not, you should definitely jump in there. But some interesting things that he had said. I just wanted to mention a couple and kind of get your thoughts. And I think this was what maybe resonated the most with the USC fans that were reading about it, what I was talking about. One, he said the defensive line, it looks a lot different. It's the most important position group on the team. I think a lot of people liked that he felt that. And also, he said, a lot of people are talking about this could be a better team. Maybe the record's not going to be as good, maybe not 11 wins because the schedule's tougher. And Lincoln Riley said no one would be happy with 11 wins this year. So I think he set the bar pretty high. But I thought it was interesting. It's cool. Congrats to Kalen Bullock and Mason Cobb. Hopefully they'll be able to, get to be finalists for that award. It's cool. That's a former Trojan, that does the award. And Lincoln Riley talked about that a lot. But just want to kind of get your thoughts on any of that, guys.
Lincoln Riley never took an excuse for last year's team that was coming out 4 wins, and he set the bar super high. So there was no way he was going to take that bait and say, yeah, we were going to aim for lower wins. So I'm not surprised he said 11 wins is no good in my book for this season with a vastly upgraded roster and a returning Heisman winner. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was just sort of like 11 wins. Like, we won't be happy with that. Like, oh, okay. Which is, would still be a really good season, obviously. There's not a lot of 11-win seasons around,
Well, he also said at the end of last season that he expected that to be their worst team that they've ever had, last year. So, he's never been one to shy away from the expectations and the pressure. I mean, we talked about it last year as opening, his opening sound bites, basically being like, I'm here to win championships. And that's being like, let's calm down. You're coming off a 4-win season. Your roster is not ready for that, even with Caleb Williams coming in. And we knew there would be some deficiencies. But I thought they've done a great job of addressing some of their deficiencies, particularly on that defensive side. And Fagans is another guy that adds to that because you lose Mekhi Blackman. You lose a couple guys in the transfer portal just for depth. So him coming in now, he can challenge for that alongside, opposite of Jacoby Covington. I think he's the one guy that's probably got a spot locked up at this point, but we'll see as the competition continues. But another 6'1" cornerback, length and whatnot. So a guy that's been in Alabama, so he's played against, some dudes there, obviously, and knows, about, what it takes to be a championship team type of thing. So, you get all those positive aspects. But I thought it was really interesting when, the one thing that stood out to me from the words that, what you wrote in the war room and a little bit we saw, he said that the defensive line is the most important position on the field.
Yeah.
And so that means Lincoln Riley, people always go, well, he focuses so much on quarterback and wide receivers. He doesn't know if they got to win in the trenches. He knows, guys. He knows they're really going to win. And they've definitely attacked that this offseason with multiple guys from Keon Bars and bringing in Bear Alexander to bringing in Jack Sullivan, a guy that can be a flex guy outside or inside. I think he's going to play a big part that is being overlooked a little bit because I think the biggest issue last year, they didn't have the top end talent on the interior, right? We know that. But Stanley Taufua and Tyrone Taleni, those are decent guys. Those are guys that you want in your rotation, but those can't be your starters and then have to play 90% of the snaps because you don't have depth at all. So now if you're rotating those guys in with Bear Alexander and Keon Bars, now suddenly the defensive line looks a lot better because those guys aren't gassed and having to take a couple plays off just to, be ready for a crucial third down or whatnot. So I think that that's going to be an area where they can really take a step forward because last year there just wasn't the depth. There wasn't the depth there. There wasn't the depth at linebacker. And both of those spots, when there were a couple of guys banged up, it really stood out. With the missed tackles, with, guys just having to play a ton of snaps or just a guy's having a bad day, you can't put anybody else in because you don't have anybody else.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest area where they have improved this offseason. They're still trying to make some additions there. But Fagans addresses a need that they still had, which is at the cornerback spot. You think Sierra Wright, Jacoby Covington, Demai Jackson, they've got some pieces, but who's going to step forward and be that guy? I think Covington really did that last year and had a really good spring game, and we've heard positive things about what he did in the spring. Now who's going to step up on the opposite side? But then again, hey, if one of those guys isn't having a good day, just broke up with his girlfriend, grandma died, whatever it may be, and his head's not in it, do you have somebody else you can go to? And that wasn't necessarily the case last year. at times. So I think now, when you're placing Mekhi Blackman, you just want to add that extra depth and add that competition as well in practice.
Yeah.
Just to jump on that a little bit more, I'm really interested to see where Fagans ends up lining up. Obviously, Dante was very happy with his double emojis or what have you, and he was involved in the team or the official visit photo with his family. So that points to cornerback. But I actually wouldn't be surprised if Fagans, moved around a little bit and maybe learned the safety position, maybe a little bit of that nickel corner kind of spot. He's long, 6'1", kind of reminds me of Latrell McCutcheon, who came in as a cornerback, but lo and behold, in the spring was working at safety and working on nickel and safety. So I'm really interested to see where he sort of lines up moving forward. It is an interesting pickup. We don't know really much about him just because he did not play a snap for Alabama last season. He's a redshirt freshman, went through all of spring camp with them before deciding to, okay, I'm going to seek a different pasture, what have you. So it was really so you don't have a ton of tape on him. You don't really know what he's capable of at the college level. So I'm really interested to see where he ends up lining up when he arrives. It seems like cornerback right now, but would not be shocked if it's sort of a nickel safety role. And it just seemed like USC was desperate to kind of get a safety body in, because they lost out on Braxton Myers, weren't able to sign him, and he flipped to Ole Miss. Now he's at Purdue. He left after their spring. And then Warren Roberson, ended up going to Texas, I believe. There was some TCU going on there. They offered another safety really late in an early signing period that didn't pan out. So it just seemed like they were really desperate for another long safety kind of body, 6 foot, 6'1". So I'm really interested to see where Fagans actually ends up playing when he gets here on campus.
Yeah. Blackie Chan put a question up there about him playing nickel. So thanks for addressing that. Let's get into some of the other stuff that happened this weekend.
Real quick, Ryan.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
With Fagans, let's not forget this is a double edition, because you're not only getting him, younger brother, who's the top safety in the nation right now, a top 10 player in the country, also committed. And again, these kids are both from Alabama. So, it's hard, if you were just recruiting, is it Anquan, Chris?
Anquan, yeah. Anquan.
Yeah, if you're just recruiting Anquan by himself separate of this, that's going to be a tough pull. You always think it's going to be really tough to pull a 5-star, top 10 rated player out of an area right down the street from Auburn and Alabama. So to be able to get his older brother, especially if his older brother can come in and have some success and start to get better, they see the development, that's really going to lead you to be able to land a top 10 player and a player that, could be an impact player immediately when he steps on campus potentially.
For sure. Yeah, he's the first commit for the class of 2025 for Lincoln Riley. And, get the number one player in the position out of SEC country. That's not a bad deal. We're going to get into I'm trying to star any questions that you're putting on Facebook and YouTube. I'll try to star those, and we'll get to those later on in the show. If you do want to call in, I know we have one caller in the queue. We'll get to you in a second. And then you can also call in and queue up 512-4-TUNNEL if you want to talk about something. But I want to kind of talk about some of the other sports and what they were going on. So USC men's tennis made it. So USC tweeted this out too. The men's tennis team made the Sweet 16, so they're in the NCAA tournament. The women's lacrosse team, I've got a picture up here. They won the Pac-12 championship. So congrats to the women's lacrosse team. I think they start in 5 days for the NCAA tournament. So they'll be playing in that, trying to win a national championship. But
just want to say congrats to them as someone from the state of Maryland, where lacrosse is big time out there.
Oh.
We're seeing the sport grow on the West Coast, and I see them practicing out on what's the field, the track field. That's where the lacrosse team practices all the time. So
yeah,
just congrats.
It used to be
them.
Locker. Now it's Allison Felix Field, right?
Yeah. So congrats to them for making it that far. I think the men's have a club team that also plays there. But yeah, congrats to them. One of the first sports I ever covered as a young college student was women's lacrosse and women's field hockey. So yeah, just a little love to the non-revenue sports.
Yeah.
And congrats to Lindsay Monday, their head coach. I was there for their very first game. This is the 11th season she's been with USC, started the program, has built it up, and continuing to be, one of the best teams on the West Coast every single year.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought it was newer because you said it was 12 years, 11 years or 12 years or whatever it is. I started going to F45 workouts in Hermosa Beach. And one of the people, like my first workout, the instructor introduces me. He's like, she's going to show you the ropes for the first day. And she's wearing like USC women's lacrosse outfit, like clothing and stuff. And I talked to her about it, and I'm like, yeah, they are the new coach. And like, well, she's been there like 12 years. I'm like, I guess it's not that new. It was a brand new sport when they brought it in. And she's done a great job there, obviously. But yeah, congrats to the winner Troy winning the Pac-12 championship. And then I watched this morning on ESPN, big ESPN, my sport, beach volleyball. The USC women three-peated, if you can believe that. So 3 championships in a row for head coach Dane Blanton. Pretty impressive run. This was a complete rebuilding year. It was supposed to be for USC, who had won the past 2 championships. I think they lost 6 of the starting 10 from last year, but they kind of reworked the roster a little bit, and Dane Blanton doing a great job there. They come in as the number 3 seed. They had just lost, I think, pretty badly to UCLA in the Pac-12 championships last week. UCLA was the number 1 seed. TCU was at one point the number 1 team in the country, and USC had to come back and beat them in the semifinals, and then they face off against UCLA, who was just won the men's volleyball national championship the day before. You see tweets about that. So they go out and three-peat. They get to jump in the Gulf of Mexico, and the beach down there is really pretty. I think they should be having these in Southern California, which I think they will in 2025. But they do the championships in Alabama, which is weird. But all the NCAA championships have been won by USC or UCLA. I think UCLA's won 2 and USC's won 5 or 4. Then it was some other
5 of 7.
5 of 7, and UCLA won the other
years
2.
That they've had it. USC has won the national title,
which is crazy. Yeah, they won like the first 2, but they had also won before it was an NCAA sport. I think Long Beach State and Pepperdine or whatever had won a couple, and then USC won, and then it became an NCAA sport, and then they won, like you said, 5 of 7. But all of the teams that have won this have been from Southern California, which makes sense. It's the mecca of beach volleyball. But it was really cool. Like USC, it's 5 matches. So there's 5 teams. You have your 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they play 2 of them at once, the 2s and the 4s. And USC wasn't favored, I don't think, in either one of them, and won them both. And then so they only needed to win 1 of the next 3, and they lose the next 2. And then it comes down to the 3 team, which the Norse, it's 2 twins that they're seniors at USC. They go out and win it in 3 sets. So it's pretty exciting as far as if you care about volleyball, but. You'd rather see, even if you don't care, you'd rather see USC win the national championship than UCLA, right? So, So anyway, but it was fun. That's the sport I like. So it was kind of fun to watch that. That was pretty cool. So pretty cool weekend for USC athletics so far.
That's coming from a pretty big-time player in the beach volleyball world.
Not really.
Ryan Abraham literally played old-ass volleyball dude on the CW's All-Americans, so he is a credited TV star in the beach volleyball world. So, yeah, big ups to Ryan.
I did interview Dane Blanton last year, so I'll have to do that again. Maybe I'll go down there and we'll do some video like on the courts or something. Check it out. But it's cool. A new sport there, and of course you'd think USC used to be good at it, but pretty impressive to win 3. That's the first time any USC women's athletics program has won 3 championships in a row. So pretty impressive.
Have you ever played with any of the alumni down there when you played in Hermosa Beach?
Oh yeah, a lot. So Donnie Sucho, who's a Olympian, 2-time Olympian. Like I've played with him. He's now running the over IMG Academy. He's running the volleyball stuff there. But yeah, a bunch of guys like Brooke Billings. I would coach with him sometimes. He was another Olympian. A bunch of those guys, just because in the whole volleyball scene. We've played on teams together where I'm just a scrub and they're like good, But
is it like playing pickup with the pros?
It's sort of like that. Yeah, I would film them and stuff or whatever. But it's been fun, and I help coach out in Hermosa Beach. We have a city league, and my buddy runs it, and I help coach there, and it's fun to like kind of see people come up through. But we've had women from the team, from USC's volleyball team, come and help coach, or alumni help coach. Dane Blanton came down one day, and helped for a little while. And we've had a lot of players. It's a smaller community, so you can get like St. John Smith or whatever, like legends like that will come and talk to the students and stuff. So it's fun. It's a fun little community. So I'm really, I'm excited for the win of Troy. Congratulations. It was a great win there.
Yeah, it was a great match too. From what you said, Ryan. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch that one, but anytime it's USC UCLA, it has an extra level of pressure. And USC was playing one of their former teammates, Haley Halgren.
Yeah.
Went to USC for 4 years. I think you said she went to Michigan for a year, and then came back to Southern California to play for UCLA. And she was in that final match. So this is the North sisters versus their former teammate and Haley Halgren, and they were able to get the win over her. So I'm sure that made it a little bit more special there.
She's legit. She played with the North sisters. She's won a national championship at USC.
Yeah, and she actually lists on her UCLA bio that her greatest volleyball achievement, is winning a national title, which was not with UCLA.
It was at USC. Goes to Michigan, plays indoor. She has a cancer scare, like she has half her lung removed, and then she goes in the portal. UCLA recruits her because she had like a medical red shirt. And she was going to be the first woman, first female volleyball player to win a national championship at 2 different schools, but USC denied her of that. But anyway, baseball, we can spend a lot of time on beach volleyball, but not baseball.
You literally played baseball, Ryan.
I know. I played baseball too. I'm not, whatever. I didn't play in college like Shoddy, but big weekend series win without the ace going, right? Without USC's ace. I'm curious what this means for postseason, where they are in the postseason, but kind of talk about that a little bit, Shoddy.
Yeah, we'll have a Dado Download podcast this week. Sorry we didn't get one last week. I had flooding in the basement, and Jack had some finals that he was dealing with, so we didn't have the timing to work it out this week. But we'll get into it a little deeper, but it's huge for their potential chance to make the NCAA tournament. If USC can win their next 2 series, now that's going to be tough. Arizona State is coming off of being swept. They're a really good team, but they're going to play them at home. USC's been really good at home. They already have series wins over Stanford at home, UCLA at home, Oregon at home. Those are all top 25 programs. UCLA has dropped out recently because of some injuries, but 2 of the top programs. ASU is probably the third one. It's going to be ASU, Oregon, and Stanford. I believe that's where the standings are right now. If USC can beat them and win that series, and if they can go to Arizona in the final weekend, always a tough place to play just because the park plays really large. It plays a lot different than most of the stadiums in the Pac-12. If they can win those 2 series, they will get to 17 Pac-12 wins. No one in the last half decade, as far as I went back, but I think it's even longer than that, no one in a long time has had 17 wins in the Pac-12 and not made it into the NCAA tournament. So, I think with those wins, it'll help their RPI and push that up. We'll see tomorrow how far they bump up from this series win against Oregon. They're down to 68, I believe it was, going into today after losing yesterday. So they'll bounce back up, probably 64-ish. If they can win the last 2 series, they should move up, probably be around the 55 range, if not a little bit higher. That, I think, will be enough to get them in, which is crazy because this team just doesn't have the talent level of some of these other programs. And they've kind of, they've been luckily have not been hit by the injury bug until this weekend. They had Tyler Soderstrom, who's their, Friday night starter. They pushed him back to Sunday because he's having some issues with his back. And then he was a late scratch today. So they just had to piece it together, and the offense really stood up for them, really stepped up. And, everyone really contributed to that. And actually the one guy who didn't do too much today was Austin Overn. He's been the fire starter for them throughout this season. Has been electric. When he hasn't done well, they haven't really done well. Today, everyone else really stepped up, and USC gets a big win over Oregon, series win over them for the weekend. Number 17, Oregon. There's a great crowd out there for the Mexican, I think it was Mexican Heritage Night on Friday. So it's a team that you want to see. I think, they're in the mix. If you get a chance, you should come out to Dado when they're playing Arizona State. I believe it's next weekend that they will play them. It's going to be a huge series for USC. And if they win that series and win the series at Arizona, they will go into the Pac-12 tournament looking like they are going to be an NCAA tournament team. Now, if they go into there, that might be it. They're right on the bubble. They're as bubble as it can be right now, but they have an opportunity to play their way in. So that's the big thing. You would not expect that. And they're basically 1 win, maybe 2 wins away from from locking up a winning record, which is something that is befuddled, USC baseball. Besides getting into the postseason, they just haven't been able to get winning records. They finished at 500 like 4 or 5 times in the last 15 years, and just a ton of losing records. I think it's 3 times since 2004, 2005. They've had winning records. I have to look it up. I don't have it right in front of me. But what Andy Stankiewicz has done has been, I wouldn't say miraculous, but it has been very, very impressive. Him and his staff it's been an unmitigated success, even if they do not make the postseason this year, because of the strides they've made, despite being hired late in the process, not being able to really attack through the transfer portal like some other programs were. I think they're on an upward trajectory that's going to have this team back being one of the, the top programs in the Pac-12 next year, and then in the Big Ten when they move over there.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to a phone call. Thanks for the update there, Shotty. We'll follow along with what's going on with the baseball there and look forward to the Dato Download podcast. All right. Let's go to, looks like we have Dave in Iowa. Dave, how's it going, man? How are you?
Hi, guys. Great to be back. I got 2 questions, as always, Ryan, so get ready for it. First one, Shotgun, what is the NBA comparison for Bronny James? And 2, for Chris, in terms of going back over with what Lincoln Riley said in terms of, yes, defensive line is the important position. I like what he said, but again, he can talk the talk. Give it 6 months and then we'll see what's what. But God forbid, if USC doesn't make 11 wins, Chris, are you going to be the brave one? Are you going to be the brave reporter to ask Lincoln Riley if the season was a failure, or just like that NBA reporter asked Giannis if their season was a failure?
Thanks, Dave, for the question. Shotty, you want to start?
I don't know the exact college comparison there. I said yesterday on the podcast, and you can listen to get more of the reasoning why, but I think that he could have a similar trajectory as a freshman as D'Anthony Melton had for USC, where he comes off the bench and just becomes an instant energy guy, coming in and playing defense, locking up, maybe even doing it, 90 feet, 75 feet from the basket, just being in somebody's grill the entire time. And then, D'Anthony Melton wasn't a great shooter. I think Bronny is a better shooter there. He can be a spot-up shooter for USC, sit in the corner. And, when Isaiah Collier or Boogie Ellis drives and draws too, they can kick it out. And, he could be a guy that can knock down some shots. If he can do that, that's going to be huge for USC. If him and Osiah Sellers can knock down those corner threes, that's something USC's really struggled with last year. I think that takes the offense to a whole nother level. So I don't have a great one-to-one comparison, but, I think that he can be an instant impact guy on defense, and then he can be a shooter for you. And I think he's only going to progress and get better as the season goes along. And I'm really curious to see what he's going to look like when he gets to USC, because I think Bronny has done a really, really good job of progressing every single year of his high school career. People look at him and go, oh, he's not a one and done. He's not this, he's not that. And no one wants to focus and pay enough attention to how much he's improved his game from year over year. And, before last year, he wasn't even nowhere near the conversation of being a 5-star player. And he worked his way into that and became a McDonald's All-American, partly because of the name, but he showed that he could hang in that game for sure. It wasn't like he was lost out there. Being at the Hoop Summit, same thing. It's not like he was just a charity invite and, hey, we don't really want to put him on the court. He was out there and playing just like everybody else. He doesn't have the same, the high-flying skill set that maybe his dad does. He doesn't have the 6'9", tank body that his dad does, but he's a much better shooter than his dad ever was coming out of high school. So, I think he's got a different style of skill set, and he's very, very basketball IQ intelligent, just like his dad. So he makes a lot of winning plays that maybe go unnoticed in the box score, but will show up for sure for the coaches.
Yeah.
And as far as my question,
Yes.
I think it would actually be a fair question depending on how many wins they do end up going or getting in 2023 if they come short of that 11-win season, because as Lincoln Riley has established, they would not be happy with 11 wins. It definitely feels like they're putting in all their chips for this 2023 season to make a run at the college football playoff, which you have to do with a guy like Caleb Williams returning for what we all presume is one more season, final in the Pac-12. You went out, loaded up on the offensive line and defensive line. You pretty much have no more excuses for that defensive side of the ball. It's make it or break it for Alex Grinch and that unit as they try to make that run. So I think it would be a fair question if, they say they won 9 games, the schedule got too much. It broke them down there in the end. So I think it would be a fair question. I don't know what he would say, but I would leave that to Ryan, actually.
I think he would probably.
Everyone loves Ryan.
He would probably. No, everyone doesn't love me. He would. I think he would offer that up himself. If at the end of the the end of the season, if it was the final bowl game press conference or if we had some kind of Zoom later, and I think there would probably be like, this wasn't what we wanted. This wasn't is what was expected. Here's the reasons why, Caleb Williams got hurt, whatever it is, it's like, there's going to be, and here's, I think he would tell you that this wasn't good enough, that this wasn't what the plan was. We had planned to do whatever. And then here's some of the reasons why, and here's what we're going to do kind of going forward. So I don't think he, that's something he wouldn't avoid. He might have just offered up himself because he said that, said stuff like this multiple times.
If they win 9 games like Chris posited, it's an unmitigated failure. Unmitigated. With Caleb Williams on there and the guys that they brought in, unmitigated failure. Now, maybe that's because, hey, Caleb Williams gets hurt and then Miller Moss gets hurt, but still, if you only win 9 games with that roster they have right now and what the strides they've made from last season, it's an unmitigated failure in my mind.
And I'm not saying they're going to win 9 games. I'm just saying it's a tougher schedule, but they've put themselves in position with the talent they've acquired and building around Caleb Williams to make a run. We just don't know anything in sports. That's why you play the games. You don't know what's going to happen. So, yeah, it would be a failure, but they're doing everything in their power to make sure it's not a failure with the guys they brought in to make a run in 2023.
We got a lot of questions starred. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can put questions there. I will try to go through these that came through. Thanks for everyone that's in the chat. Thanks for liking, subscribing, all of that. Let's start off with James. How big are typical basketball classes? The 24/7 site shows 3 kids for USC committed in 2023. Is that normal?
Yeah, it really depends. In basketball, you have 13 scholarships, I believe it is, 12 or 13. Blanking on it right off the top of my head. I think it's 13. But you can have, and it's a lot different with the transfer portal now. You can have, if you're counting transfer portal, then you can have 5, 6 guys, and that's not uncommon with the transfer portal. It's just straight high school. It's rare that you get more than 3. Sometimes you get 4 or 5. USC had the really big class with Isaiah Mobley coming in, and they had 4 or 5 guys then. But you can also have classes where you only have 2 guys coming in or even 1 guy. It just depends because there's so limited roster space that you're not losing a ton of guys every year like you would in football. You may lose some because of the transfer portal. But if you just had everyone staying in their classes and graduating, then you're having at max, you're basically having 3 to 4 players per class that are coming in. So 3 is a pretty normal amount for them to come in. Now, again, USC is going to try to add to that with the potential of a transfer, with Keyshawn Johnson being one of the targets from San Diego State. They could also look for a high school player. And, if that Aaron Bradshaw rumor comes to fruition, then, yeah, they would definitely take him and find a way to make it work there. And that would make it 4. They would have one of the top 2 classes in the country, I believe, if that were to happen, if not the top class. So 3 is not anything unusual.
Yeah. We had a question from Joe C. I've heard that grad transfers can still transfer even after the portal is closed. Since Miller Moss is graduating, does this mean he can still transfer? And so I know there's some confusion as far as that goes. There was a portal window that opened, and it just closed April 30th. That's to enter your name. There are exceptions that you could still enter the portal. That's if you're a graduate. If you have graduated, you can go into the portal whenever you want. If your head coach gets fired, I think you have 30 days to go into the portal. But for regular students that aren't graduating, they can't enter the portal now. There's a lot of names already in the portal. So if you're already in the portal, you can transfer whenever you want. But grad transfers can still happen. That's some of the rumors about Colorado needing to still replace, almost 20 guys or whatever on their roster. And looking at the guys in the portal, there's not as many big names like a Tre'Quon Ferguson, like someone I think Dion would have loved to bring someone like that in, but there's only so many of those guys in there, and you have schools like USC trying to pick the best ones out that are in there already. But you could still get grad transfers coming into the portal later in the process. So, and yes, Miller Moss, I believe, graduates this month, or he's graduating, in 3 years. So, if he wanted to enter the portal as a grad transfer, he would be able to do that. But any thoughts you guys want to add?
Yeah, in theory, he still could. As of right now, I don't think he is going to. But
yeah,
yes,
I don't think so.
Grad transfers still have the ability. Like Joshua Jackson entered the portal before the portal actually opened for that spring portal window because he was a graduate transfer. So he was allowed to enter at whatever time he chose. So yes, theoretically, Miller Moss can still enter, but as of right now, I don't think he's going to.
Yeah. We have a lot of questions in the queue, but if you want to jump to the front of the line, Manfred of the Manfred Collective.
Okay.
Says, Shotgun, could you host a 2-star composite next week for Chris? Unless Hurricane needs a break, but he seemed willing on the last episode. Yeah, if you listen to the 2-star composite recruiting show last week, it seemed like Gerard really wanted to do it and was like sort of auditioning names. He mentioned doing it with me. He mentioned it, I don't know, Shotty.
Which is interesting. Gerard's really gotten into this podcast. And normally and I think part of it is because Chris does the work and Gerard's not having to edit it.
He talks, he leaves. I spent another hour in the studio by myself editing.
And he's willing to just drop you. Like, it's just like a bad habit. Just boom.
Look, I'm okay with a fellow helium boy taking my place. Swap one helium boy for another, and an honorary cilantro boy in Shotgun Spratling. So, yeah, if Shotgun wants to take on that endeavor, I don't know what that would cause with the episode because Shotgun likes to talk, Gerard likes to talk. It might rip a hole in the space-time continuum, and they might be stuck in a time loop if they do that. So I don't know, but yeah, that's all up to Shotgun and Gerard if they want to go ahead and take on a special composite takeover.
Yeah, I used to do it with Gerard, and he mentioned that like on the show, but like I would try not to talk too much about stuff. Like if I went to the opening or whatever it was and I saw players, I would talk about it. But otherwise, I just let Gerard kind of talk. Shotgun and him there'd be a lot of talking going on. So I don't know. That might be tough.
We'll see. I'm not as well versed in all the local kids and whatnot, just because I haven't been able to get out to the camps like I normally would be able to, the 707 stuff. So I haven't seen a lot of guys with my own eyes, but maybe I can watch some film leading up to it. We'll see. We'll see what Gerard's schedule looks like, and maybe we'll be able to make it. I won't make any promises, but maybe we'll be able to make it work. I think there could be some interesting topics that overlap in different sports, actually. The Bronny and the impact that he has, even with football. I think that would be an interesting conversation to have with Gerard, too. So
maybe we could do a live
see what the schedules look like.
We could do a live one. I could be in the studio. You could do remote, and maybe just have Gerard do remote.
You're trying to get those composite donations.
Yeah, Chris would be really upset if all the donations came in. And he's like not a part of
chat,
it.
I'm just gonna keep donating my own money to my own show to get to the top. Like, this is bull. This is bull.
Danny had a question from YouTube. The various collectives have different focus areas, like Hall of Victory versus Tommy Group versus Victory Formation, current upper class retention, transfer portal, high school, NAL education, counseling, guidance. It's a crazy space right now. I think they're all trying to figure all that stuff out.
Is he asking or is he saying that?
I think he's asking.
I think they're kind of moving towards different ones having different specialties, if you will. I think that is the plan because obviously you don't want to be like bidding against yourself and like stepping on each other's toes. It just makes more sense to, okay, you guys handle transfers, we'll handle retention, and we'll handle, I don't know, receivers, whatever. Just everyone, it's better to have a detailed focus for people instead of like everyone just trying to. It's just not efficient if you're all just trying to do the same thing. So I think they're moving towards that.
Yeah.
And I would also say I talked with someone who runs a collective at another school, and his advice was you really need one that's a nonprofit and one's a for-profit because they just do so many different things in that area that you kind of need that. So, it helps to diversify in that way. But like Ryan said, you don't want to be stepping on each other's toes like, oh, we got to help pay for this guy. No, we're going to do it. No, or whatever it may be. So I think if you can, have your own lanes and kind of diversify in that way. And then with the nonprofit versus for-profit, just with the donations, it's a different way for donations to come in and people to donate their money. Some people want to get that tax write-off, whatnot. That really helps as well. So I think that, having a couple is not actually a bad thing, as long as they're not competing with each other.
Yeah, there's been some consolidation. I know like the basketball one came into with the House of Victory. There was similar. I think they had like Will Smith as a big donor. I think he was involved in both of those. So you sort of like kind of, do the consolidation there. So it's still a space that's evolving. So we'll put it that way.
We should just ask the Manfred of the Manfred Collective.
Yeah.
His thoughts on that, since he literally is a collective
Right.
entity.
All on his own.
All on his own.
Bob Mack says, what's going on with Corey Foreman? Spelled incorrect. It's Korey, guys. Haven't heard much about how he is progressing.
We should make a rule where we're not taking Corey Foreman questions if the name is spelled incorrectly.
I'll remove it just because we don't want to see that.
I'm implementing that rule on Tunnel Vision. If you spell the name wrong, you do not spell Corey right, as it was Corey right. That was incorrectly spelled, the first name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is not going to, it's going to be ineligible to be asked on this show. It's Korey, people. Come on. Get it. Put some respect on his name. And what's going on with Corey Foreman? He's moving to a more natural, like, defensive end position. He will be edge rusher, not going to be standing up as much. I mean, he could, I guess, if he still wanted to, but the implication is that he's going to be, a traditional 5-tech, hand on the ground kind of rusher, and, that's more of what he played in high school. So we'll see if that has any uptick in his production moving forward into his. This will be his junior year, or something like that. So, yeah.
And people are asking, it's not Will Smith, the actor. It's a different Will Smith. I think it's just
Will Smith, the Dodgers catcher.
No, different. No. Is that Will Smith?
He's Will Smith, too.
Why are people asking about Will Smith?
Because Ryan mentioned that Will Smith's one of the contributors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know much about. I met some of the guys that run some of the collectives or some of the money behind it, but I haven't met him, so I'm not sure. Let's pull up
real
Steve.
quick on Bob's question. I think the reason why he hasn't heard much about Corey Foreman is because he can't Google it. He's not getting the results.
Very good point.
Wait, does Shotgun know where Will Smith played college ball?
Will Smith, the Dodgers catcher, played at Louisville.
Shotgun always on top of it.
He knows. That's funny. Steve had a question from YouTube. Chris often talks about SC improving certain areas like offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, etc. Is it fair to assume most top-tier teams improve year over year? If so, are we gaining ground or just keeping up? First of all, I don't think every team can't gain every year over year. Like everyone doesn't, get infinitely better. Like you have LSU 2019 and a huge drop off. It's you kind of build that sustained success is really hard. Look at Alabama. They've been able to have a lot of success over the years, losing coordinators, coaches, tons of draft picks, and being able to bounce back and win it again is tough. They haven't done the back-to-back much. Georgia just did it. So we'll see if they're to do it again. But I wouldn't say every team's getting better year over year. It's hard to, you get guys really good and you lose them, and you got to build them up again.
That's why
it's really. Go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Shotgun.
It's really hard to do it in college because you have guys for max 3 years, or minimum 3 years. But so you're not going to have your elite players like Caleb Williams. USC is going to take a step back whenever Caleb Williams leaves. I don't care who the next quarterback is. It's going to be a step back because I think Caleb Williams is the best quarterback we've seen come through USC.
Fair. But my take on that, yes, that's why you over-recruit every year. It's, we just signed 2 5-star linebackers in 2022. Yeah, I'm going to go out and sign 2 more 5-star linebackers in 2023. You over-recruit. That's what these teams like Georgia and Alabama do. They over-recruit. They stack positions because you don't know who's going to pan out. You don't know who's going to get an injury. And when those guys leave, you have, 2 other high-caliber guys or 3 high-caliber guys they recruited in the previous cycle ready to step up and into that role. That's why Alabama's defensive line and Georgia's defensive line always just seem to have dude after dude after dude after dude because they take them, sign them, develop them for a couple years, they give them time, and then they blow up for their final 2 years in college. They do it every year. That's where USC is trying to get to, where they can just keep building the roster. They stack it. So it's just a continuous, cycle of good talent playing in their starting lineup. And then when they leave, go off to the NFL, you got 2 more guys back here. I can say that USC is upgraded for this team because, look, the 2021 roster was bad. A lot of deficiencies. 2022, after all the recruiting and out of the portal in high school, less bad, but still bad, obviously, on defense. And then this year, they've upgraded everything to where now it's like, okay, the defense could be actually, like, good for this season. So It's easy for USC because they did a very bad job of recruiting in the previous staff, so there was a lot of deficiencies. So it's easy for them to just grow and grow and grow. But you can't do that year after year. As Ryan said, you can't infinitely just keep getting better and better. So you just got to get to a point where it's stable and you can keep that cycle going. And you will have some off years. Obviously, that happens. But the goal is to just keep stacking recruiting classes so it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's why recruiting never stops, because you got to constantly be finding the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, because you can't say, all right, well, you got Corey Foreman, you got Rajon Davis, so we're good for 3 years, and those guys just haven't produced yet in those first couple of years. You got to have somebody the next year, and the next year, maybe somebody jumps over somebody. Those things happen, but maybe it takes somebody a little bit longer to develop. Maybe Corey Foreman breaks out this year, and you go, well, he's the number one player. He should have been playing like that the whole time. Guys take different amounts of time to develop. Sometimes there's injuries, sometimes, but you got to back it up with the next guy and the next guy in case someone's not ready, in case someone goes down with an injury. You can't just be like, well, season's over. Our quarterback went down with an injury. We just didn't, prepare for the next guy. You just got to constantly be cycling it, just like Chris said. So, that's the big challenge of college football. In the pros, you lose somebody to injury. All right, well, can we make a trade? Can we go find a free agent? You can't do that in college. If you lose somebody, you're done for the year as far as that position. You can't add anybody mid-year to your roster.
Ohio State won a championship with their third-string quarterback, but with the transfer portal, that might be a little tougher to do now because those guys
very true.
Yeah. Blackie Chan says, are we at 85 players right now? If not, are we still pursuing Tywone Malone? My count is it was 83 until today. Now transfer in 84. We did an update. I updated the scholarship distribution chart over the weekend or heading into the weekend, going into when we did the war room. So I think there's still a spot open, at least right now.
I think there's at least one spot open. And again, we don't know if maybe there's another player that's been processed we're not sure about. So that'll obviously become more clear as we, ask around, and obviously when the fall roster comes out and we'll see who is not on the roster. But I would say there's at least one spot right now. Do you spend that on a defensive tackle like Tywone Malone, who, shotgun, also a baseball player, as could be a double boost for both teams? Or, I still think that would be better spent on an offensive tackle for next season if you only have one spot. But, Lincoln Riley and this team will find a way, if they need a defensive tackle and offensive lineman, to open up another spot if there is another spot that is needed.
Yeah. We got one from Ula Luau. How is this CB group going to shape out? So pretty deep in the corners, like, Shotgun already mentioned Jacoby Covington, big, he's looks the part for sure. Christian Roland Wallace was banged up a little bit for spring football, but I think he could, have that potential to be the Mekhi Blackman for this season. I mean, you mentioned Sierra Wright, Damati Jackson.
They're 4 deep, as you just mentioned with those guys. Those are 4 guys who are capable of starting. Damani maybe at the bottom of that just because he's so young as a true sophomore and, didn't get a ton of playing time last year, still shaking off that rust. But as far as his ceiling, it's blows everyone out of the water just with all his 5-star attributes. But, between Sierra, who took a jump this year after, starting last year, and then Jacoby Covington, who had a really, really good spring, a camp and a spring game with those 2 interceptions. He's on pace, push for a starting spot as well as Sierra, but also Christian Roland Wallace. They didn't bring a 4-year starter to come in there and sit on the bench. So the competition's pretty fierce in that room. So they're pretty solid with the depth. And, as I said, 4 deep, and they still have some bodies in there to play around with. It was a complete 180 from last season's spring camp where they had like 3 healthy scholarship cornerbacks at one point. So they're in a lot better position. How it's going to play out, I think the competition is still ongoing. I can't really say one or the other. I mean, Christian Roland Wallace, we still haven't really seen what he's going to be able to bring to the table, but I really like Jacoby Covington right now. I really like Sierra Wright right now. But Christian Roland Wallace, obviously a veteran and experienced player. We'll have to see in the fall how that actually shakes out. But they're in a good spot with the competition and the guys they have coming back.
I think so. Next up, this is a Facebook question. If you're on the Facebook chat and you want to have a question, we'd love to put it in there. Mike Rust says, traveling from Oregon for a couple games this year, what's a good hotel to stay close to the Coliseum? So there's the USC Hotel, right? That's
Is
where
that the Radisson?
I think it's now. Is it the USC Hotel?
Is it called that now? I mean, it was
I
always
think
the
it
Radisson.
is,
That's
yeah.
where, a lot of coaches would stay. Monty Kiffin basically lived there. Brendan Sosna lived there while he was there. So
Yeah.
you randomly might see someone from administration or the coaching staff if you stay
And
there.
McKay's restaurant, which is cool. A lot of good memorabilia down there. I don't know a lot of places. I mean, I would probably recommend. I always recommend just staying at the beach. Like the players stay at the West Drift in Manhattan Beach, like on game night. So that could be a cool spot. But anywhere around, like downtown LA, you could somewhere down there, like the LA
Ritz-Carlton.
Live, what's the other one? Begins with a B. It's a kind of a fancy one downtown. I forget.
I know which one you're talking about, but you can also stay
the Bonaventure.
You can also stay at the Cecil Hotel, the haunted hotel.
Cool.
It's not too far from the Coliseum and downtown, but hopefully you don't end up in a water tank like that one girl. But
Oh no. I misheard the question. I thought he was saying he's going to Oregon for games, and if we had Oregon hotel recommendations. But if in terms of what I interpreted the question as, don't stay at that Airbnb we stayed in for Oregon State. That is all I can say.
That was bad.
We only had to hop the fence a couple times.
We only had to hop the fence a couple times. We got
2 in the
locked out of
morning.
one of our bedrooms. And it was literally like, I don't know how to describe it. It was literally 3 rooms. That was it, stacked on top of each other.
It was interesting.
It was stairs and 3 rooms. That was all it was.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, but would not recommend.
No.
Yeah, Ruben had a great recommendation. Downtown LA, take the metro to the game. The Bonaventure, the Biltmore. Same thing. You can go to Santa Monica, just look for the rail line and somewhere near the rail line. I think that's a great way to go.
Culver City too, I think.
Culver City is very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get in and out, especially if you're Culver City is one of the spots I usually go and see friends every time I'm in LA. If you can catch a spot where it's near the metro and near some stuff to go out the night before, some good spots, yeah, you're right in there.
Yeah. Blackie Chan says, do you think George Kliavkoff will be upset, that's the Pac-12 commissioner, with USC winning the Pac-12 before leaving the Pac-12? Be honest. LOL. And it's funny, I talked to someone that works at the Pac-12, and from what they were telling me, they definitely feel like they're going to treat USC and UCLA like they're members until they're not. And I think they would embrace, if USC can make the playoff, I think they would embrace that sort of on the way out, look at something to build on.
Would they rather someone else
Would they rather
be
Oregon
the
make it
team
or
to
Washington?
do that?
Yes.
As long as they're a team that's going to make the playoffs? Yes, they were like, because there's a lot of money that comes with making the playoffs, guys.
Yeah. He also wanted to know, do you think that the House of Victory would be more successful than past NIL groups, and any reason why Reggie isn't a part of it?
Seems like they have the momentum.
I've been impressed with what they're doing. They were well represented at the Lot Trophy luncheon. People that were on the board there. So it seems like, there's not a partnership because the NCAA kind of stopped that, but there's some sort of synergy between the groups. Lincoln Riley seems, on board. They seem to be doing pretty well. I don't know how much of the money is getting funneled to any of these transfers or players or whatever, but it doesn't seem to be any kind of roadblocks, at least right now, or less of it. USC's definitely been behind the curve as far as NIL stuff goes. But it seems I've been impressed with the people I've talked to that are involved in House of Victory. So I think it's positive. Reggie works in sports media. I don't know. That might be kind of weird for him to be involved, but I don't know what you guys think, but
It's not like Matt Leinart is, the front and center person of collectives or something. He might be behind the scenes or whatnot, but, it's kind of an interesting dynamic if you're helping one school and then you're going to talk to UCLA for before their game or whatever. Like that's might cause some friction. So media, you kind of we got to stay out of it. That's not our place.
Yeah. You guys speak on the Dylan Raiola situation. Is it game over for USC? I think I had
I'm tired of talking about Dylan Raiola.
Okay.
It's just every other week, it's like the crystal ball flips and back.
Oh, here here's a photo of him.
Goes back and back. It's like a ping pong ball, just going back and forth, back and forth. Whatever happens is going to happen. Lincoln Riley's not worried about a quarterback. He's the greatest quarterback coach in football right now. He will figure it out. And if you're a quarterback, you don't want to play for Lincoln Riley, that's fine. He'll go and get another quarterback and make them really good. So if they don't get Dylan Raiola, they're not going to sweat about it. They're just going to go on to the next one. Do not worry about quarterback recruiting with Lincoln Riley. And if he ends up coming, number one prospect in the country, that's great. And USC's 2024 class will get a super big momentum push because of it. But I think they'll be all right, regardless of what happens with how the Dylan Raiola situation plays out. And I say that now, and probably next week he'll get a crystal ball back to USC.
Fair point there. We got a couple more, and a Shotgun might have a few, but Zombie says, when will USC get locker room upgrades? We don't know.
I don't get to use it, so I don't really care that much, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely talk about facility upgrades. We haven't had any sort of concrete plans or anything yet. I think there's stuff being worked on behind the scenes. That's probably a fair way to put it. And then the last one I starred, this is from R. Willis, 916. Who's the number one receiver next year? Singer, Rice? Who do you guys think?
I would say Singer is my early favorite, followed by Brendan Rice after that, and maybe Taj Washington in that group.
Wow. Forgetting about Mario Williams?
Yeah, that Mario Williams is going to be my answer, actually. So I think he's the guy. He's got that rapport with Caleb Williams. I think he takes a step forward this year, a little bit more focused, not dropping any balls. He's got the dynamicism to be a guy that you can use all over the place. So I think that, but there's so many options, and they can do different things. And we didn't even mention Zachariah Branch, and he's the guy I want to see the most.
Yeah. Nice. Was there any other ones that you looked at, Shotgun, you want to do? Or we've gone, it's been a long show, but if there's
I thought that this was interesting. Blackie Chan has asked several great questions. Thanks so much for contributing. And make sure you guys are also hitting that like button down there. Like, subscribe, all those things. But he said, this was very early in the show. He said, do you think Lincoln Riley is finally getting his groove with recruiting to USC? Now, I think USC's done pretty well with recruiting, but they have missed out on some big name guys and some big targets. Does it seem like things are kind of progressing? And maybe Chris can answer this better than any of us since he's so in the weeds with it. But also, Ryan, maybe you can talk about the potential of how the collectives are helping with that too. But it does, to me, seem like the recruiting is rolling a little bit stronger now than it has in the past.
It helps that obviously USC has put up some proof of concept with what they're doing at USC and Lincoln Riley. Obviously, it was a little bit of a slog, recruiting based on faith of what they were going to do last season. And now, you won a Heisman, you won 11 games. You were a win away from the college football playoff after taking with a 4-win team the year before. So, you're seeing what USC is capable of under Lincoln Riley. So, kids are seeing that. They're seeing, hey, this is what they've done. This is not like them talking about what they can do. They did this in year 1. Imagine what they can do in year 4, year 3, or whatever. So, yeah, they have more momentum when it comes to that. And obviously they're showing that they're the kings of the transfer portal. So that's still rolling along. And it does seem like high school recruiting is, stabilizing a little bit. And they're, they still have some misses, obviously. Any team will. But it seems like they're getting more hits than strikeouts.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think on the NIL front, USC was sort of scrambling a little bit, and Boulevard, for whatever reason, it just wasn't working, and I think that certainly hurt them. But when we've heard Riley speak about it, that just like this is the way college football recruiting works now. It's not a luxury; it's a necessity. And I didn't feel like he felt that this was something that was holding him back anymore. Where before you kind of felt like there was some of that too. So I think some of the behind-the-scenes stuff is coming together, which is good, and you're seeing results, which is good. But the transfers, I think, maybe are a little bit bigger than maybe even Lincoln Riley thought they would be. When you talk to people that work in the business, it's a different entity. You're recruiting a guy for a couple of weeks versus a year and a half or 2 years, and they could change their mind at the last second, or they get there and transfer out. So there's definitely, I think I'm surprised as how much transfers are still involved, but it might switch. It's probably gonna switch more and more to high school stuff, but there's benefits to getting transfers in as opposed to getting high school players. I mean, proven players, but the recruiting process and all that is different
It's
too.
just easier because you have to spend a week's worth of energy and resources in recruiting a transfer guy as opposed to 2.5 years in a year cycle to recruit a high school kid who might just go to the highest bidder somewhere else. So transfer recruiting is definitely easier, less time consuming, and it takes less resources to go out and already get an established kind of player, depending on obviously who that player is, than high school. So it's easier and less of a headache than high school right now, given the NIL landscape.
Yeah, and Blackie Chan says, "Oh, sorry. Oh, do you want to?"
Also, with transfers, you usually have a better idea if they're ready to contribute right away. You know, speed of game, they've already gotten used to that. You've got some tape on them. All those type of things make transfers that much more attractive to coaches too.
Yeah, USC's had some missed in the portal too, where guys that weren't, like you mentioned, Ismail Sofshire, or Ethan White coming in having an injury. Like sometimes that happens too. You just don't, But I think he's done a really good job, like not just bringing in great players, and some guys are just depth, but a lot of them are starters, and then also good chemistry guys. Like it hasn't upset the, we've heard so many bad chemistry stories of these teams over the years. We're not hearing that anymore with Lincoln Riley. Blackie Chan also says, take it or leave it, USC will have a top 40 defense this year.
Oh, God.
I'm going to take it.
I'll go for it. I'll take it. Why not?
Yeah.
I think they have depth. The depth is so huge because when you have an injury to Eric Gentry and you have broken hands to Shane Lee and Raylan Goforth, you actually have somebody else you can put in there.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll take it too.
Nice.
Let's just keep it. Let's just keep it 3 for 3.
All right, now I'm leaving it because Chris took it.
Fair enough.
All right, let's go complete rapid fire. One or two sentences at max. Andrew, want to know who's the most animated defense player you guys witnessed during spring? Is the answer Eric Gentry? That's my question to you guys.
Kind of hard because I didn't see him a lot, but the answer would be Eric Gentry if he was healthy.
Agree.
He didn't even play, so it's interesting. Danny had a question for me. Does Austin Overarm focus on baseball and quit football? That seems like that's going to be the plan. The football thing is a great story, but it sounds like he's just doing so well on the baseball side that I think he's already his parents have really said that on Twitter a couple of times, so I think that's going to be the play there. Leonard want to know, who are your most improved players from the spring? I want to say from last season or last year at this time to where you saw them at the end of the spring. Who kind of stood out the most to you?
Jacoby Covington obviously has had a really strong spring camp. I've talked about him before. He was starting to figure it out at the end of last year, and I think he's made a really big jump for this season. So I would say Jacoby Covington.
I would up there. I mean, Brendan Rice year over year, I think he's improved, quite a bit. But yeah, Covington on the defensive side. I mean, and guys I like the way Sierra Wright's come along on the defensive backfield too. Just from what we saw from last year. It's hard. We didn't get to watch all the spring practice and stuff, but just from kind of what you've seen in the spring game and where they're guys are getting first team reps. Those are a couple of guys I would mention.
I would throw out, if we're going to say from last year to this year, maybe even last spring to this year, Gino Quinones being an actual depth piece for them that could potentially start and fill in like he did a couple games. I would not have expected that last spring when Lincoln Riley arrived, type of thing. So that's an extra one for you guys. Ruben had a question. He said, Andy Stankiewicz is how he wrote it, but we'll forgive you, Ruben. This is a difficult name to spell. Andy Stankiewicz is doing an incredible job with the baseball team. Watch the Trojans come back and beat the Bruins 6-5. He said it was a lot of fun. How does Stank do it with a lack of talent? And I've said this, they just don't have a ton of talent right now, but everyone knows their role. And they do the little things. They don't beat themselves. In college baseball, it's so much about just don't beat yourself because, you make a couple errors and suddenly things snowball on you. It happens so much. Can you field a bunt? Can you move a guy over? All the small things really matter in college baseball. Now, some teams, the LSUs of the world, the Tennessee last year, can just maul you with their talent. But LSU does not play great baseball, and that's why they lost their first series this weekend against Auburn as a team that is not that great this season. So, that's the big key is they do this, they do the little things, they do the right things, and that's been something that's been really an eye-opener and fun to watch because, it makes the play that much more interesting and exciting to watch. And Tim said, I'll be there he was referring to the ASU series for the baseball. I can't wait to be at Dato again. They are 8-0 this season when Tim's at the games. He said Andy Stankiewicz should pay him I don't know if there's a collective out there for you, Tim, but maybe a Manford from the Manford Collective could throw something in for you. Not sure. And a couple last ones. Herman said, do we have enough on the defensive side of the ball to get to the natty, meaning USC? I don't know about Chris's defense. I might take Gerard, but I don't think we have enough to get to the natty.
No, I mean, I think there's been some talk in the chat about this. Like a top 40 defense, I think you're going to win the Pac-12. Like the offense is going to be good enough, and that means you're going to you're likely to go to the playoff. So I feel like if we all feel it's going to be a top 40 defense. I feel like I don't know about winning a national championship, but I think they have enough. There'll be enough defense to make the playoff, which is a big accomplishment.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then 2 final questions. We'll put them together. Someone asked, is Raleek Brown going to be a running back or receiver? And then R. Willis also asked, any news on the running back room as far as a clear starter? Are they going to do a running back 1-2 punch like Reggie Lindell back in the day? I could see it being even more, but I also thought that last year coming in, I thought you would see a little bit more rotation, and then it was 1-2 to begin with, and then it became just 1. And at the end of the season, it became a different one. The running back room, I think that's very interesting. I don't know what you guys think about where it is and if it's going to be a 1-2, it's going to be a workhorse. How do you see it playing out right now?
I think it's a 1-2 to start, and then whoever grabs it and is just playing the best is going to be the guy like Travis Dye did last season. So I think they'll just, split it between Marshawn Lloyd and Austin Jones, the 2 veterans, older guys, let them duke it out, and whoever establishes himself and just takes the job will be the guy. And I think Raleek Brown is going to play both. I think they're going to move him back and forth. He's obviously a very stacked running back room, and you want to get the ball in his hands. He's good enough athlete to be a wide receiver, so I think we're going to see him do both. Line up in the backfield, line up in the slot. So I think he'll just be like a overall just offensive weapon.
Yeah, and I love what we saw from Quentin Joyner and Marion Peterson. Like, they looked really good. There could be a little thunder and lightning duo just themselves. And, for Brown, too, and I don't know if you guys agree, but from Riley's comments, it sounded like he was banged up a little bit, and that's part of the reason why he only played receiver in the spring. So I agree with Chris. I think you're going to kind of play him all over the place. Just get the ball in his hand somewhere, just in open, get him the ball, open space, and let him do some fun stuff. But yeah,
I think it's just interesting because now you have 3 of those guys, if you count Raleek, that are slot guys that you just like, if we get the ball in their hands and let them do work. You got Mario Williams. You saw, he can make people miss. Taj Washington could even do that too. But you got Mario Williams, now Zachariah Branch, and Raleek Brown are guys that can give you that home run threat with a screen, with quick game, with something short, just because they can make a guy miss and accelerate and take off. So how do you use those guys? Because they kind of all fit that same mold of that shifty slot receiver that we want to get the ball in their hands, in my opinion. Now, how do you use them? Can you use them all at the same time? Or is that now become the depth chart of that one position per se? What can you do besides that to get yourself on the field? So I think that'll be, that might be part of how Raleek Brown, is he doing enough as a running back to then get himself on the field as a slot receiver as well?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we should probably wrap things up here. Hour and a half. Good stuff. I think we had like 400 people in the YouTube room chat live. That's pretty cool. Thank you so much for everyone that did that. And Manford of the Manford Collective, thanks for your super chat donations. Those are really cool. Always fun to do that. Chris, do we want to do a pose? Or is that just for the... We could do like the eyes, ears, like the monkey thing, like where like one of us covers eyes, one covers mouth, one covers ears.
I don't dibs on eyes because I don't want to see it.
Okay, Shaka, you do ears because you don't have headphones on, so I'll do mouth. All right, so
what have I gotten myself into?
Perfect. I like it.
We didn't mention, Ryan, the men's tennis team also made it to the Sweet 16.
He did mention that.
I mentioned it.
He did mention
that. Oh, sorry,
that.
my bad.
That's okay.
I don't know
That's
if you
good.
know, but the beach volleyball team won their 5th national title in 7 years.
Yeah.
National championship number 135 for USC.
Wow. That's impressive. Very cool. All right. Well, that's going to wrap things up. We'll try to do some more television, especially if there's a big news weekend like we've had this weekend with all the championship stuff going on and the recruits and things like that. And we do appreciate everyone tuning in live. If you're watching on a replay, that's great too. Or if you're listening in the podcast version that we put up later on, that's awesome as well. Check out uscfootball.com for all of our content. For Chris Trevino, Shotgun Spratling, I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.